The massive trading hub of Delta Station hung in space like a jewel against the backdrop of Viridia's purple atmosphere. Ships from dozens of worlds docked at its gleaming ports while merchants hawked exotic goods in the main plaza. For 3 months, humanity had been trying to establish regular trade routes through this crucial gateway to the Outer Rim territories. David Reed checked his oxygen readings one final time before giving the signal to his crew. The 6 humans aboard the transport vessel Endeavour had spent weeks preparing for this meeting with the station's governing council. Everything had to go perfectly. Earth's colonies desperately needed the rare metals and medical supplies that flowed through Delta Station, and this was their best chance to secure long-term trading agreements. "Helmets secured, life support green across the board," reported his second-in-command, Lieutenant Maria Santos. The woman's voice crackled through the CUM system as she adjusted her standard EVA helmet. The reflective visor gleamed under the ship's interior lights, designed to protect human eyes from the harsh radiation common in space environments. The docking procedure went smoothly. Delta Station's automated systems guided the Endeavour into Bay 7 without incident. Through the airlock windows, David could see the familiar bustle of interstellar commerce. Towering hegemony traders with their crystalline exoskeletons moved cargo containers while smaller Zentari merchants scurried between the stalls with their wares. "Remember, we're here to observe protocols and make a good impression," David reminded his team as they prepared to disembark. "The Aldari control most of the security here, and they're known for being particular about proper procedures." Tom Bradley, the youngest member of their diplomatic team, fumbled with his helmet seal. Mechanism. The recent Academy graduate had been chosen for this mission partly because of his engineering background, but his nervousness showed. "Sir, this visor keeps fogging up. The humidity controls seem to be malfunctioning." "Deal with it once we're inside," Maria instructed. "We can't keep the welcoming committee waiting." The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss, and the human delegation stepped onto Delta Station for the first time. The main corridor stretched before them like a cathedral, its walls lined with viewing ports that offered spectacular views of the planet below. Aliens of various species moved about their business, but David noticed how conversations seemed to pause as the humans passed. Commander Nix emerged from a security checkpoint, his tall frame imposing even by Aldari standards. The alien's translucent skin pulsed with soft bioluminescent patterns that David had been told indicated formal attention. The Althari's large, multifaceted eyes fixed on the human group, and immediately the light pattern shifted to what the briefing materials had described as deep concern. "Greetings, humans of Earth," Commander Nix said, his voice carrying the peculiar harmonic quality of his species. "I am Commander Nix, Chief of Station Security. I must confess confusion about your appearance." David stepped forward, trying to project confidence despite the growing tension he could feel from the alien delegation. "Commander Nix, I'm Captain David Reed. We're honored to be here and look forward to establishing positive relations with Delta Station and its governing council." The Aldari commander's skin patterns shifted again, this time displaying what looked like rapid flashes of red and orange. Several other Aldari security personnel had gathered behind him, their own bioluminescent displays creating an unsettling light show in the corridor. "Captain Reed," Nix said slowly, "your people hide their eyes behind mirrors. In Aldari culture, this is troubling. When beings meet for the first time, the eyes must be visible. They are the windows to intention, to honor, to truth. Your people come before us as if preparing for war." David felt his stomach drop. The briefing materials had mentioned Aldari emphasis on eye contact, but nothing had indicated that protective gear would be interpreted as hostile. "Commander, I assure you these are merely safety devices. Human physiology requires safety?" Nix interrupted, his skin now flashing bright red patterns. "You suggest that we of Delta Station pose a danger to your kind? That our very presence threatens you?" The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Other aliens in the corridor had stopped to watch the confrontation, and David could see security personnel from multiple species beginning to take positions around his team. Maria stepped closer to him, her hand instinctively moving toward her sidearm before she caught herself. Tom chose that moment to stumble. His fogged visor had completely obscured his vision, and he accidentally bumped into a distinguished-looking Aldari wearing elaborate ceremonial robes. The elder alien staggered backward, his own bioluminescent patterns exploding in brilliant flashes of what David was certain meant outrage. "Elder Quinn?" Nix exclaimed, rushing to steady the ceremonial leader. "Are you harmed?" The elder Aldari's patterns had shifted to deep purple, and when he spoke, his voice carried an authority that made the entire corridor fall silent. "The hidden eyes mock us with their clumsiness? They cannot see us, yet they dare to touch us. This is intolerable." David tried desperately to salvage the situation. "Please, this was an accident. Our crew members' equipment malfunctioned." "We" meant no disrespect to Elder Quinn or to your people. But Elder Quinn had already turned away, his robe swirling as he strode toward the council chambers. Commander Nix's skin patterns had settled into a cold, steady blue that David suspected was very bad news. "Captain Reed," Nix said formally, "you and your people will remain in this corridor under guard while the council considers this incident. I strongly suggest you do not move from this position." The next 3 hours were the longest of David's diplomatic career. Through the corridor's viewing ports he could see shuttles arriving and departing as word of the incident spread. His team stood in awkward silence, surrounded by Aldari guards whose skin patterns remained ominously dim when Commander Nix finally returned. He carried a formal declaration sealed with the insignia of Delta Station's governing council. "Captain Reed, by unanimous vote of the council, effective immediately, no human vessel will be permitted to dock at Delta Station or any affiliated facility while crew members wear concealing headgear. Your species has shown contempt for the sacred customs of first contact. You have 1 hour to depart." David stared at the document in disbelief. "Commander, surely we can discuss this. Our people need access to these trade routes. We can find a solution that respects your customs while maintaining our safety requirements. The decision is final," Nix replied. "Your hour begins now." As the human delegation was escorted back to their ship, David realized that humanity's relationship with the galaxy had just changed forever. One misunderstood piece of safety equipment had potentially cut Earth off from the most important trading hub in this sector of space. The Endeavor's engines hummed to life as they prepared for the long journey home, carrying news that would shake the foundations of human expansion into the stars. 3 weeks after the Delta Station incident, the communication arrays on Luna Base intercepted the transmission that would change everything. The message came through the standard diplomatic channels, but its contents sent shockwaves through the entire solar system. Admiral Kate Foster sat in the emergency session of the Colonial Defense Council, watching as each new report made the situation worse. The holographic display showed trade routes closing one by one across known space. What had started as a single station's ban was spreading like wildfire through the galactic community. "The Zentari Collective has just issued their own restrictions," reported Colonel James Park, his voice tight with barely controlled frustration. "No human ships allowed in their space while crew members wear concealing facial apparatus. They're using the exact same language as the Aldari Declaration." General Ross Kane slammed his fist on the conference table. "This is insane. We're talking about basic safety equipment. Would they prefer our people to suffocate in hostile environments?" Dr. Alex Burton, Earth's chief xenopsychologist, cleared his throat nervously. The thin, scholarly man had been trying to explain the cultural implications for the past hour, but the military leadership seemed more interested in assigning blame than understanding the problem. "General, if I may," Dr. Burton began, "the issue isn't really about our safety equipment. From what I've been able to research about Aldari culture, eye contact serves a fundamental role in their social structure. They literally cannot trust someone whose eyes they cannot see. To them, hiding one's eyes during first contact is equivalent to declaring hostile intent." Admiral Foster leaned forward, her weathered face showing the strain of the past few weeks. "Doctor, help me understand something. If this is so important to them, why wasn't it in our cultural briefings? Because we've never had significant contact with the Aldery before, Burton replied. Most of our previous alien encounters were with species that don't place the same emphasis on visual communication. The hegemony traders we've dealt with communicate primarily through biochemical signals. The merchant guild species use sound patterns we simply didn't know. The discussion was interrupted by an urgent communication from Mars Colony. Administrator Lisa Chun appeared on the main screen, her face drawn with exhaustion. Behind her, the red landscape of Mars stretched toward the horizon, but the usual bustle of construction equipment was notably absent. Admiral, we have a critical situation here, Chun reported. The terraforming project has ground to a halt. We were expecting a shipment of atmospheric processors from the hegemony suppliers, but they've canceled the contract. Without those components, we're looking at a 2-year delay in the atmospheric modification schedule. Foster closed her eyes. Briefly, Mars was humanity's showcase colony, proof that humans could transform entire worlds. A 2-year delay would cost billions of credits and potentially threaten the lives of the colonists who depended on the terraforming equipment to maintain breathable air in the underground cities. What about alternative suppliers? Foster asked. That's just it, Admiral, Chun replied. There aren't any. The hegemony holds the patents on atmospheric processor technology. The only other option would be to develop our own systems from scratch. And our estimates suggest that would take at least 5 years. Colonel Park brought up another display showing the Outer Rim colonies. It gets worse. The supply ships to New Haven, Prospector's Point, and the mining stations in the Kepler system have all been turned away. These colonies have maybe 6 months of supplies before they face serious shortages. The room fell silent as the full scope of the crisis became clear. Humanity's expansion into space had been built on trade relationships with alien civilizations. Human technology was impressive, but they still relied heavily on alien innovations in areas like faster-than-light communication, advanced materials, and exotic energy sources. General Kane stood up abruptly. This is exactly why I opposed the rapid expansion in the first place. We made ourselves dependent on aliens who can cut us off at a moment's notice over some ridiculous cultural misunderstanding. It's not ridiculous to them, Dr. Burton protested. General, we have to understand that different species have evolved different social cues and communication methods. What seems minor to us can be of vital importance to others. Then what do you suggest, Doctor? Admiral Foster asked. Should we order our people to remove their helmets and risk death by exposure just to make the aliens happy? Burton pulled up his research files, displaying anatomical charts of various alien species. Actually, Admiral, I've been studying this problem extensively. The issue isn't just about helmets, it's about visibility and trust. If we could develop transparent protective gear that allows for clear facial recognition while maintaining life support functions, we might be able to satisfy both safety requirements and cultural expectations. General Kane shook his head. Transparent? Aluminum technology exists, but it's experimental and expensive. Converting our entire fleet to use new helmet designs would cost more than we can afford, especially now that our trade revenues have been cut off. The meeting was interrupted again, this time by an emergency transmission from the outer colony of New Haven. Robert Hayes, the settlement's leader, appeared on screen with obvious desperation in his voice. Admiral Foster, we have a medical emergency. 3 of our colonists are showing symptoms of Rigel fever, and our medical supplies are running critically low. The supply ship that was supposed to arrive yesterday has been turned away at the system boundary. We need those medications within the next 48 hours, or we're going to lose people. Foster felt the weight of command pressing down on her. Every decision could mean the difference between life and death for thousands of colonists scattered across dozens of worlds. The helmet ban wasn't just a diplomatic inconvenience, it was becoming a humanitarian crisis. Hayes, what about emergency protocols? She asked. Can you dock with supply ships while your people aren't wearing helmets? There was a long pause before Hayes replied. Admiral, you're talking about EVA operations in hard vacuum. Without proper protection, exposure time is measured in seconds before unconsciousness, maybe a minute before death. It would be suicide. Doctor. Burton stood up suddenly, his eyes bright with an idea. Not necessarily, Admiral. What if we developed a hybrid approach? Transparent protective gear for initial contact and diplomacy, combined with emergency protocols for critical supply transfers. If we could demonstrate that humans are willing to risk their own safety to respect alien cultural norms, it might change how other species perceive us. General Kane scoffed. You're suggesting we risk human lives to appease alien sensibilities? Suggesting we demonstrate human adaptability and courage, Burton replied firmly. Every species in the galaxy knows that humans are willing to fight. Maybe it's time we showed them that we're also willing to sacrifice for the sake of understanding. Admiral. Foster studied the faces around the table, weighing the options. Outside the conference room windows, Earth's blue surface rotated slowly below them, peaceful and beautiful. But she knew that peace was fragile, dependent on humanity's ability to maintain its place in an increasingly complex galactic community. Dr. Burton, how long would it take to develop and test transparent helmet prototypes? She asked. With the right resources and funding, maybe 3 months for initial prototypes, 6 months for fleet-wide implementation. We don't have 6 months, Foster said grimly. Our colonies will be in crisis long before then. We need immediate solutions for the supply situation, and we need long-term solutions for diplomatic relations. She turned to address the entire Council. I'm authorizing emergency protocols for critical supply missions. Colony administrators will have the option to risk helmet-free transfers for life-threatening situations. At the same time, Dr. Burton will lead a crash program to develop transparent protective gear. We're going to solve this problem, whatever it takes. As the meeting broke up, Foster remained behind, staring at the tactical display showing humanity's scattered colonies. Each point of light represented thousands of people depending on her decisions. The helmet ban had revealed just how vulnerable human expansion really was, but it had also presented an opportunity. If they could find a solution that satisfied both human safety needs and alien cultural requirements, humanity might emerge from this crisis stronger than before. Deep in the research laboratories beneath Geneva Base, Dr. Emily Chin worked through her third consecutive night without sleep. The transparent aluminum samples spread across her workbench represented humanity's best hope for ending the galactic isolation that threatened every human colony beyond Earth's solar system. Her team of engineers and material scientists had been pushing the boundaries of known technology, but progress was frustratingly slow. The molecular structure keeps destabilizing under pressure differential testing, reported her lead engineer Michael Torres, as he examined the latest prototype. We can get transparency or we can get structural integrity, but not both simultaneously. Emily rubbed her tired eyes and studied the holographic display showing the helmet's stress patterns. The transparent aluminum formed a perfect sphere. When unpressurized, but the moment they introduced the pressure differential needed for life support, microscopic fractures appeared throughout the material. What if we're approaching this wrong? She muttered, more to herself than to Torres. Instead of trying to make the aluminum transparent, what if we used a composite approach? Multiple layers with different properties? Before Torres could respond, an urgent message flashed on Emily's communication terminal. The transmission came from New Haven Colony, and the desperation in Administrator Robert Hayes' voice was immediately apparent. This is New Haven Colony calling any Earth vessel. We have a critical medical emergency. Rigel fever has spread to 12 colonists, and our antiviral medications are completely depleted. The supply ship Meridian is holding position at the system boundary, but they're refusing to dock while our crew wears protective gear. We need those medications within 18 hours or we're going to start losing people. Emily felt her stomach clench. New Haven was one of humanity's most remote settlements, a mining colony that extracted rare Earth elements essential for faster-than-light drive construction. The colonists there had volunteered for one of the most dangerous assignments in human space, and now they were dying because of a cultural misunderstanding. She opened the channel to Admiral Foster's office on Luna Base. Admiral, this is Dr. Chun at Geneva Research. I've been monitoring the New Haven situation. I think Hayes might be willing to attempt an unprotected transfer. Foster's image appeared. On the screen, her face showing the strain of weeks without adequate sleep. Doctor, are you suggesting we allow colonists to perform EVA operations without helmets? That's essentially a death sentence. Not necessarily, Emily replied, her mind racing through the possibilities. Human physiology can survive hard vacuum for approximately 90 seconds before permanent damage occurs. If Hayes and his people are willing to risk it, they could transfer critical supplies in multiple short-duration EVAs. It would be dangerous, but not necessarily fatal. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. That would require extraordinary courage from the colonists. They'd be risking their lives for a supply transfer? Admiral, they're dying anyway if they don't get those medications. At least this gives them a chance. 24 hours later, the supply ship Meridian maintained position near New Haven colonies. Orbital platform, while Administrator Hayes and his team prepared for the most dangerous supply transfer in human history. The alien crew of the Meridian, a mix of Zentari traders and hegemony. Technicians watched in fascination as the humans prepared to risk everything for their principles. Hayes stood in the colony's airlock, his hands steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to attempt. His three-person team had practiced the transfer procedure dozens of times, but practicing in simulation was very different from the reality of hard vacuum. Meridian, this is New Haven. We're beginning transfer protocol. Please have the medical supplies ready for immediate handoff. The alien voice that responded carried a note of disbelief. New Haven, are you certain about this procedure? Our sensors indicate you are not wearing protective gear. Confirmed, Meridian. We're going to show you that humans honor their commitments even when it means risking our lives. The airlock cycled open, and Hayes stepped into the void between the ships. The cold of space hit him immediately, but he had perhaps 90 seconds before oxygen deprivation would cause permanent damage. His teammates moved with practiced efficiency, transferring the first batch of medical supplies in less than 60 seconds before sealing themselves back in the airlock. The transfer took 4 separate EVAs with different team members rotating to minimize individual exposure. By the end, Hayes himself had been exposed to hard vacuum for nearly 3 minutes total, pushing far beyond safe limits. But every critical medication had been successfully transferred to New Haven Colony. The alien crew of the Meridian transmitted a detailed report of the transfer to their respective governments. Within hours, the story was spreading through galactic communication networks. Humans had willingly risked death rather than compromise their respect for alien cultural norms. Back at Geneva Base, Emily finally achieved the breakthrough she had been seeking. The key wasn't creating perfectly transparent aluminum, but rather developing a hybrid system that combined transparent aluminum viewing ports with traditional protective materials. The new helmet design featured a transparent face shield that provided complete facial visibility while maintaining the structural integrity needed for life support. Run the pressure tests again, she instructed Torres as they examined the latest prototype. This time, use the full EVA simulation protocol. The tests exceeded all expectations. The hybrid helmet maintained structural integrity under extreme pressure differentials, while providing crystal-clear visibility of the wearer's face and eyes. More importantly, the manufacturing process could be adapted to existing production facilities, making fleet-wide implementation feasible within months rather than years. Admiral Foster arrived at Geneva Base to personally examine the prototype. She wore the transparent helmet while Torres subjected it to every conceivable stress test, from rapid decompression to thermal shock. The design held up flawlessly. Dr. Chun, this is exactly what we needed, Foster said after completing the tests. How quickly can we begin production? We can have the first 50 units ready within 2 weeks, Emily replied. Full fleet conversion would take about 4 months, assuming we can secure the necessary materials. Do it. I want to personally test these helmets in a real diplomatic situation. Foster paused, considering the implications. I'm thinking of a direct approach to the Aldery homeworld. If we can convince them that we've addressed their cultural concerns, the other species might follow their lead. Emily felt a surge of excitement mixed with anxiety. Admiral, that's an enormous risk. If the helmets fail during a diplomatic mission, or if the Aldery reject the compromise, we could make the situation even worse. Dr. Hayes and his people just risked their lives to show aliens that humans honor their principles. The least we can do is risk our diplomatic standing to show them that humans can adapt and innovate. Foster picked up one of the transparent helmets, examining its construction. Besides, this technology represents something more than just a solution to our current crisis. It shows that humans can find creative solutions to seemingly impossible problems. Word of the New Haven transfer continued to spread through galactic networks. The Zentari Collective's ruling council issued a statement expressing admiration for human dedication to principle. Even some Aldery military commanders began questioning whether the helmet ban had been an overreaction. Dr. Alex Burton arrived at Geneva, base with a detailed analysis of galactic reaction to recent events. The political situation is shifting, he reported to Foster and Emily. The New Haven incident has generated significant discussion among alien governments. Some species are beginning to view the helmet ban as excessive, particularly given the lengths humans went to respect cultural norms. Emily studied Burton's report, noting the detailed psychological profiles of various alien leadership groups. Doctor, do you think the Aldery would be receptive to a direct diplomatic approach? It's possible, Burton replied carefully. The key would be demonstrating that our transparent helmets address their specific cultural concerns while maintaining our safety requirements. If we can show them that we've made genuine efforts to accommodate their customs, they might be willing to reconsider their position. Admiral Foster made her decision. Dr. Chun, I want you to personally oversee the production of a diplomatic set of transparent helmets. Dr. Burton prepared detailed cultural briefings for a mission to Aldery Prime. We're going to end this isolation, and we're going to do it by showing the galaxy exactly what humans are capable of when we put our minds to a problem. As Emily returned to her laboratory to begin production of the diplomatic helmets, she realized that this crisis had revealed something important about humanity's place in the galaxy. They weren't the strongest species or the most technologically advanced, but they possessed something that many aliens found remarkable: the ability to adapt, innovate, and sacrifice for principles they believed in. The transparent helmets represented more than just a technical solution. They were proof that humans could find ways to bridge the gap between different cultures while maintaining their own integrity and safety. The next phase of humanity's relationship with the galaxy was about to begin, and it would depend on whether a simple piece of transparent technology could open doors that had been slammed shut by cultural misunderstanding. The approach to Aldery Prime required nerves of steel and perfect timing. Captain David Reed guided the diplomatic vessel Harmony through the outer perimeter of the Aldery home system, acutely aware that dozens of powerful warships were tracking their every movement. The transparent helmet felt strange on his headlighter than the traditional EVA gear, but somehow more exposed. Dr. Alex Burton sat in the co-pilot seat, his hands trembling slightly as he reviewed the cultural protocols they would need to follow. The xenopsychologist had spent weeks preparing for this moment, but theory was very different from facing the most powerful military force in this sector of the galaxy. Incoming transmission from Aldery Fleet Command, reported communications. Officer Lieutenant Sarah Walsh. They're requesting verification of our intentions and crew complement. David activated the response channel, making sure the transmission would clearly show his transparent helmet and visible face. Aldery Fleet Command, this is Captain David Reed of the diplomatic vessel Harmony. We request permission to approach Aldery Prime for a formal audience with the High Council. Our crew consists of 6 humans, all wearing transparent protective gear designed to honor Aldery customs while maintaining necessary life support functions. The response took several minutes, during which David could see the massive Aldery warships adjusting their positions. The aliens' vessels were works of art as much as instruments of war, their crystalline hulls reflecting the light of the system's binary stars in spectacular patterns. Human vessel harmony, came the eventual reply. You are granted conditional approach. To Aldery Prime, any deviation from prescribed flight path will result in immediate destruction. You will land at Diplomatic Facility 7 and await escort. To the High Council chambers. The planet itself was breathtaking. Aldery Prime's surface shimmered with the same crystalline formations that characterized their architecture, creating a world that looked like it had been carved from a single enormous gem. Cities rose from the landscape in spiraling towers that caught and refracted sunlight into rainbow patterns visible from orbit. Dr. Emily Chun, who had insisted on joining the mission to personally oversee the helmet technology, checked her equipment readings one final time. All systems green. Captain, the transparent aluminum is holding up perfectly under atmospheric pressure changes. The landing procedure went smoothly, but David could see that they were surrounded by Aldery security forces the moment their ship touched down. The aliens. Bioluminescent skin patterns were muted but constant, creating an ever-shifting display of lights that he had learned to interpret as heightened. Alertness. Commander Nix emerged from the security contingent, the same Aldery officer who had overseen their expulsion from Delta Station weeks earlier. His skin patterns shifted to what David hoped was recognition rather than hostility. Captain Reed, Nix said as the human delegation disembarked, the High Council has agreed to hear your petition, though many members remain skeptical of human intentions. I must admit surprise at your ... modifications. David touched his transparent helmet, noting how Nix's large compound eyes tracked the movement. Commander, we have made every effort to address the cultural concerns raised during our previous encounter while maintaining the safety requirements essential to human physiology. Indeed, the Council will determine whether your efforts are sufficient. Nix gestured toward a crystalline transport vehicle. You will be escorted to the Council chambers immediately. I should warn you that Elder Quinn, whom your crew member struck at Delta Station, has particular influence in today's proceedings. The journey through the Aldery capital was both fascinating and intimidating. The aliens' architecture seemed to grow from the planet's surface rather than being built upon it, with streets and buildings flowing together in organic curves that captured and channeled natural light. Aldery citizens paused to watch the human delegation pass, their skin patterns flickering with what Dr. Burton quietly identified as curiosity mixed with wariness. The High Council chambers were even more impressive than David had imagined. The vast space was carved from a single crystal formation, its walls and ceiling refracting light into complex patterns that seemed to respond to the emotions of the assembled council members. 12 ancient Aldery sat in positions around the chamber's perimeter, their formal robes glittering with embedded crystals. Elder Tal, the most senior member of the council, sat at the chamber's focal point. The ancient Aldery skin patterns moved slowly, hypnotically, creating waves of color that David found oddly calming. When Elder Tal spoke, his voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate through the crystal chamber itself. Humans of Earth. Elder Tal began, you return to our space after bringing dishonor to our customs and insult to our people. What words do you offer that might repair the damage done? David stepped forward, acutely conscious that every word could determine humanity's future in galactic society. Elder Tal, honored members of the High Council, we come before you in the spirit of understanding and reconciliation. Our previous actions were born of ignorance, not malice. We have worked to address your cultural concerns while maintaining the safety requirements that protect human life. Dr. Burton activated a holographic projector that displayed detailed technical specifications of the transparent helmet system. Honored elders, these modifications allow complete facial visibility, while providing necessary life support. We hope this demonstrates human commitment to respecting Aldery customs. Elder Quinn, the Aldery who had been struck during the Delta Station incident, rose from his position. His skin patterns flashed with what David was certain represented continued anger. Pretty words and clever devices mean nothing. Your species hides behind technology rather than facing the universe with courage. How can we trust beings who fear to breathe the same air as their allies? The challenge hung in the air like a physical presence. David felt his crew tense behind him, but before he could respond, a commotion erupted from the younger members of the Alderi delegation, Commander Voss. A military leader David recognized from intelligence briefings, stepped forward with several other young Alderi warriors. Their skin patterns blazed with aggressive displays that needed no translation. Elder, Quinn speaks truth, Voss declared, his harmonics creating discordant notes that made the chamber's crystals vibrate uncomfortably. These humans speak of courage while cowering behind artificial protection. If they would claim partnership with the Alderi, let them prove their worth through trial of strength. Elder Tal's patterns shifted to what Dr. Burton had identified as deep displeasure. Commander Voss, you forget yourself. These humans come under diplomatic protection. Do they? Voss challenged. They request privilege in our space while demonstrating weakness. The Code of Honor demands proof of character before trust can be granted. David realized that the situation was spiraling out of control. The younger Alderi clearly represented a faction that viewed humans as inferior, and their challenge could derail the entire diplomatic mission. But before he could formulate a response, Dr. Burton stepped forward. Commander Voss, Burton said calmly, you speak of courage and character. Would you consider it courageous if a human were to risk his life to demonstrate respect for Alderi customs? Voss's patterns shifted to what might have been amusement. Words are easy, human. Actions reveal truth. Burton began removing his transparent helmet. The action caused immediate consternation among the Alderi, their patterns shifting to alarm, as they realized what the human was attempting. Doctor, stop, David commanded, but Burton continued the helmet removal process. The atmosphere here contains trace compounds toxic to human physiology, Burton explained as he set the helmet aside. Extended exposure will cause respiratory distress and potentially permanent damage. But if it demonstrates human respect for Alderi customs and courage in the face of danger, I am willing to accept that risk. The chamber fell silent except for the harmonic resonance of the crystals. Burton stood unprotected in the alien atmosphere, his breathing already becoming labored as his body reacted to the unfamiliar chemical composition. Elder Tal leaned forward, his ancient eyes studying the human with new interest. Dr. Burton, why do you risk harm for the sake of diplomatic protocol? Burton's voice was becoming strained, but he managed to reply clearly. Because understanding between species requires sacrifice from both sides. We ask for your acceptance of our safety needs. In return, we demonstrate our willingness to risk everything for the sake of mutual respect. Commander Voss's aggressive patterns had faded to something approaching respect. The human shows courage, but courage without wisdom is merely foolishness. Replace your protection, Dr. Burton. Your point is made. But as Burton reached for his helmet, Elder Tal suddenly collapsed. The ancient Alderi's breathing became irregular, and his skin patterns flickered chaotically. The chamber's atmosphere, adjusted to accommodate multiple species for the diplomatic meeting, was apparently causing distress to the elderly council leader's more sensitive physiology. Without hesitation, David grabbed Dr. Burton's transparent helmet and placed it over Elder Tal's head. The helmet's life support systems immediately began filtering the atmosphere, providing the elderly Alderi with the purified air he desperately needed. The chamber erupted in shocked harmonics as the assembled Alderi witnessed a human risking his own safety to protect their most revered elder. David felt the effects of the unfiltered atmosphere almost immediately. His lungs burned and his vision began to blur, but he maintained his position until Elder Tal's breathing stabilized. Commander Nix rushed forward with portable atmospheric equipment, allowing David to breathe safely while Elder Tal continued to use the human helmet. The gesture had lasted only minutes, but its impact on the assembled Alderi was immediately apparent. Elder Tal's skin patterns, visible through the transparent helmet, shifted to colors that Dr. Burton had identified as profound gratitude and respect. When the elder finally spoke, his words carried the full authority of his position. The human demonstrates the highest principle of our code, Elder Tal said, his voice strengthened by the filtered air. To risk one's life for another, especially a former adversary, shows character that transcends species boundaries. Commander Voss, you challenged human courage. Do you find it lacking? Commander Voss's patterns had shifted entirely, displaying what Burton recognized as deep respect. Elder Tal, I have seen proof of human honor. My challenge is withdrawn. Elder Quinn, who had maintained his hostility throughout the proceedings, now displayed patterns of contemplation. These humans show more wisdom than we credited them. They adapt their customs to honor ours while maintaining their principles. Perhaps we were hasty in our judgment. Elder Tal carefully removed the transparent helmet and returned it to David. Captain Reed, your species has demonstrated courage, innovation, and selflessness. The High Council will reconsider the restrictions placed upon human vessels. As the formal session concluded, David realized that humanity had turned a potential disaster into an opportunity for deeper understanding. The transparent helmets had provided a technical solution, but it was human willingness to sacrifice for others that had truly won Aldery respect. Elder Tal approached David personally as the council session ended. Captain Reed, your Dr. Burton's action reminds us that courage takes many forms. We Aldery have always valued warriors, but perhaps we have overlooked the courage required for true diplomacy. Dr. Burton, who had recovered from his brief exposure to the unfiltered atmosphere, stepped forward. Elder Tal, we hope this demonstrates that humans are willing to adapt and learn. Our species may require protective equipment to survive in different environments, but we also understand the importance of trust and mutual respect. Commander Voss joined the conversation, his earlier hostility completely replaced by genuine curiosity. Dr. Burton, your transparent helmet technology is remarkable. Would humans be willing to share this innovation with other species who face similar challenges? Emily Chun activated her portable display, showing technical specifications for the helmet system. Commander, we believe that technology should serve understanding between species. We would be honored to work with Aldery engineers to develop versions suitable for different physiological requirements. The offer clearly impressed the assembled Aldery. Their skin patterns shifted to what David had learned indicated pleased surprise. The idea that humans would freely share advanced technology, rather than hoarding it for competitive advantage, seemed to challenge their assumptions about human nature. Elder Tal's patterns settled into the steady, warm colors that indicated deep satisfaction. Captain Reed, the High Council will reconvene tomorrow to formally address the restrictions on human vessels. I believe you will find our decision ... favorable. Tonight, you and your delegation will be our honored guests. As the humans were escorted to luxurious quarters within the Crystalline Palace, David reflected on the day's events. The transparent helmets had solved the immediate technical problem, but human actions had addressed the deeper issue of trust between species. Dr. Burton's willingness to risk his health for diplomatic protocol and David's instinctive move to help Elder Tal had demonstrated values that transcended cultural differences. The evening's formal dinner provided an opportunity for informal conversation with Aldery leaders. Commander Voss proved particularly interested in human military tactics and philosophy, while Elder Quinn engaged Dr. Burton in lengthy discussions about interspecies psychology. Your species puzzles us, Elder Quinn admitted during the meal. We expected humans to be either aggressive conquerors or weak supplicants. Instead, you show strength through adaptation and courage through sacrifice for others. This is ... unexpected. Dr. Burton smiled, carefully adjusting his transparent helmet to ensure clear communication. Elder Quinn, perhaps that's the key to successful interspecies relations. We should expect to be surprised by each other. Our differences can be sources of strength rather than conflict. As the evening progressed, it became clear that the day's events had shifted Aldery perception of humanity in fundamental ways. The transparent helmets had provided a practical solution to the immediate crisis, but human behavior had opened doors to much deeper cooperation. Commander Nix approached David as the dinner concluded. Captain Reed, I must ask you something. When Elder Tal collapsed, you acted without hesitation to help him, even though doing so put you at risk. Was this a calculated diplomatic move or genuine concern for his welfare? David considered the question carefully. Commander, I acted on instinct. Elder Tal was in distress and I had the means to help him. The diplomatic implications didn't occur to me until afterward. That is what I suspected, Nix replied, his patterns shifting to warm approval. Your species acts from conscience rather than calculation. This explains much about human behavior that we found contradictory. The next morning brought news that would reshape humanity's relationship with the galaxy. Elder Tal announced the High Council's decision to not only lift the helmet ban but to formally endorse human transparent helmet technology as a model for interspecies accommodation. The Council has concluded that the restrictions placed on human vessels were based on incomplete understanding, Elder Tal declared in the formal session. Humans have demonstrated both respect for our customs and remarkable innovation in finding solutions that serve multiple species' needs. We hereby lift all restrictions on human vessels and recommend that other civilizations adopt similar accommodations. The announcement was transmitted throughout Aldery space and beyond, carried by the same communication networks that had spread news of the original ban. Within hours, other species began responding. The Zentari Collective announced they would review their own restrictions, while the hegemony of worlds expressed interest in acquiring transparent helmet technology for their own diplomatic corps. As the Harmony prepared to depart Aldery Prime, Dr. Emily Chun found herself in demand from Aldery, engineers eager to understand the transparent aluminum manufacturing process. What had begun as a crisis-driven innovation was quickly becoming a foundation for expanded technological cooperation. Captain Reed, Elder Tal said during the farewell ceremony, your species has taught us that true strength lies not in rigid adherence to tradition, but in the wisdom to adapt while maintaining core principles. We look forward to deeper cooperation between our peoples. The journey back to human space felt very different from their anxious approach weeks earlier. Instead of traveling through hostile territory, they moved through space that was rapidly opening to human vessels once again. Reports came in of successful docking operations at stations throughout the sector, with human crews proudly wearing their new transparent helmets. Dr. Burton spent the return journey analyzing the broader implications of their success. Captain, I think we've learned something important about galactic diplomacy. Technology alone couldn't have solved this crisis. It required human willingness to take personal risks for the sake of understanding. David nodded, watching the stars stream past as they entered faster than light travel. Doctor, I think you're right. The helmets were important, but what really changed minds was seeing humans act with courage and compassion even toward former adversaries. As they approached Earth's solar system, messages began arriving from colonies throughout human space. Supply ships were moving freely again, the Mars terraforming project was back on schedule, and New Haven Colony reported that their medical crisis had been resolved through regular trade channels. The transparent helmet incident, as historians would later call it, had revealed both humanity's vulnerability and its greatest strength. When faced with seemingly impossible choices between safety and diplomacy, humans had found innovative solutions that served both needs while demonstrating the courage to risk everything for the sake of mutual understanding. 6 months after the historic meeting on Aldery Prime, the construction crews working on New Geneva Station represented something unprecedented in galactic history. Humans worked alongside Aldery engineers, Zentari technicians, and hegemony specialists, all wearing various forms of transparent protective gear adapted from the original human helmet design. Station Administrator Rebecca Walsh watched the construction progress from the Central Command Center, marveling at how dramatically the galaxy had changed. The transparent helmet crisis that had once threatened to isolate humanity forever had instead become the foundation for the most ambitious cooperative project in known space. Section 7 reports completion of the atmospheric processing systems, announced her Aldery deputy, Engineer Crix, his bioluminescent patterns displaying satisfaction. The multi-species environmental controls are functioning perfectly. Each sector can maintain appropriate atmospheric conditions while the transparent barriers allow complete visual communication between species. Rebecca nodded, adjusting her own transparent helmet as she reviewed the construction reports. The helmet had become more than just safety equipment. It was a symbol of humanity's willingness to adapt and innovate for the sake of interspecies. Cooperation. The central hub of New Geneva Station bustled with activity as representatives from dozens of worlds conducted business. The station's unique design allowed each species to maintain their preferred environmental conditions while enabling face-to-face interaction through transparent barriers and advanced communication systems. Dr. Emily Chun, now heading the Interspecies Technology Cooperation Initiative, arrived for her weekly inspection tour. Her transparent helmet bore subtle modifications that had become popular among the engineering community, integrated displays that could project technical specifications directly into the wearer's field of vision. Rebecca, the quarterly productivity reports are extraordinary, Emily reported, her enthusiasm evident even through the helmet's communication system. Trade volume through New Geneva is up 300% compared to traditional stations. The transparent barrier technology is eliminating most of the communication delays that used to slow down complex negotiations. The success of New Geneva Station had attracted attention from across the galaxy. Species that had never previously engaged in direct trade were establishing commercial relationships, drawn by the station's reputation for facilitating safe, efficient interspecies commerce. Captain David Reed arrived aboard the merchant vessel Prosperity, bringing a delegation from the newly established Galactic Commerce Council. The council represented an unprecedented alliance of species, working together to establish standard protocols for interspecies trade and diplomacy. Administrator Walsh, David greeted as he disembarked, the council is extremely impressed with what you've accomplished here. Elder Tal specifically asked me to convey the Aldery High Council's appreciation for human leadership in developing these collaborative technologies. Rebecca felt a surge of pride as she escorted the delegation through the station's main commercial districts. Shops and trading posts operated by dozens of different species line the corridors, their transparent barriers allowing customers to browse and negotiate without risking exposure to incompatible atmospheres. The tour was interrupted by an emergency announcement from the station's medical bay. Dr. Alex Burton, who had accepted a position as New Geneva's chief synopsicologist, requested immediate assistance with a cultural crisis in the diplomatic quarter. The delegation hurried to the diplomatic sector, where they found a tense standoff between a group of Rigelian merchants and Aldery security personnel. The Rigelians, a recently contacted species with strict taboos against artificial barriers, were refusing to conduct business through the transparent walls that other species found perfectly acceptable. The Rigelians consider any barrier between trading partners to be a sign of mistrust, Dr. Burton explained quickly. Their cultural protocols require direct physical contact during commercial exchanges, but their atmospheric requirements are incompatible with most other species. Rebecca studied the situation, her mind racing through possible solutions. The Rigelians represented a potentially lucrative trading partnership, but accommodating their needs without compromising the safety of other species presented a complex challenge. What if we modified the transparent barrier protocol? Emily suggested. We could develop specialized contact chambers with selective permeability areas where compatible species could interact directly while maintaining atmospheric separation from incompatible environments. The solution required 3 hours of intensive engineering work, but the result was elegant in its simplicity. A series of specialized chambers allowed Rigelian merchants to interact directly with species that could tolerate their atmospheric requirements, while maintaining protective barriers between incompatible environments. The successful resolution of the Rigelian situation became another example of the collaborative innovation that New Geneva Station represented. Rather than excluding species with difficult requirements, the station's philosophy was to develop technological solutions that accommodated everyone's needs. Later that evening, Rebecca hosted a formal reception for the Galactic Commerce Council delegation. The event was held in the station's Grand Assembly Hall, a magnificent space with transparent walls that offered spectacular views of the surrounding starfield. Elder Tal attended the reception via holographic projection from Aldery Prime, his ancient face clearly visible through the transmission. Administrator Walsh, he said during his formal address, New Geneva Station represents the finest ideals of interspecies cooperation. What began as a crisis has become an opportunity for unprecedented collaboration. Dr. Burton presented his analysis of the station's social dynamics to the assembled delegates. What we've discovered here is that transparent communication, both literal and figurative, is the foundation of successful interspecies relations. When beings can see each other clearly and understand each other's needs, cooperation becomes natural rather than forced. The reception was interrupted by urgent communications from multiple sources. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy about species adopting transparent communication technologies for their own diplomatic and commercial facilities. The innovations developed at New Geneva Station were spreading rapidly throughout known space. Commander Voss, the Aldery military leader who had initially challenged human courage, appeared via communication link from a frontier outpost. Administrator Walsh, I wanted to report that we've successfully implemented transparent barrier technology at our border stations. The improvement in trade relations with neighboring species has been remarkable. As the evening progressed, Rebecca reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this point. The helmet ban that had once seemed like an insurmountable crisis had revealed humanity's greatest strength, the ability to find innovative solutions that served everyone's interests while maintaining core principles. Captain David Reed joined her at the viewing wall, both of them watching the constant flow of ships arriving and departing from the station. Vessels from dozens of worlds moved through the traffic control patterns, their crews confident that New Geneva Station could accommodate their needs regardless of their species' particular requirements. Rebecca, do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd handled the original crisis differently? David asked. Sometimes, she replied thoughtfully. If we'd simply accepted the helmet ban, or if we'd tried to force other species to accommodate our needs without considering theirs, we might never have developed these collaborative technologies. Emily Chen approached them, carrying a data pad with the latest construction reports. The expansion project is ahead of schedule. We're adding 12 new commercial sectors and 6 additional diplomatic suites. The demand for space here is exceeding our most optimistic projections. The success of New Geneva Station had far-reaching implications beyond simple commercial prosperity. The collaborative technologies developed there were being adapted for scientific research stations, military installations, and even civilian colonies where multiple species lived and worked together. Dr. Burton's research had documented something. Remarkable species that had never previously engaged in meaningful cooperation were forming lasting alliances based on the trust built through transparent communication. The barriers that had once divided the galaxy were being replaced by bridges of understanding. As the reception concluded, Elder Tal delivered a final message that would be remembered throughout galactic history. The humans taught us that true strength lies not in the ability to impose one's will upon others, but in the wisdom to find solutions that honor everyone's needs. New Geneva Station stands as proof that different species can work together toward common goals while maintaining their unique identities. Rebecca remained in the observation lounge long after the delegates had departed, watching the starfield and thinking about humanity's place in the galaxy. The transparent helmet crisis had revealed that humans possessed something rare and valuable, the ability to turn obstacles into opportunities, to find common ground where others saw only differences. The communication console chimed softly, displaying a message from Admiral Kate Foster on Luna Base. Rebecca, the Colonial Defense Council has approved funding for 5 additional stations based on the New Geneva model. Congratulations on proving that cooperation works better than competition. As Rebecca prepared to leave the observation lounge, she paused to watch a group of young beings from multiple species, working together on a maintenance project visible through the station's transparent walls. Human engineers collaborated with Aldery technicians, Centauri specialists, and representatives from half a dozen other worlds, all wearing various forms of transparent protective gear. The site represented everything that New Geneva Station had accomplished. Different species working together, each maintaining their unique characteristics while contributing to a common goal. The transparent helmets that had once been a source of conflict had become symbols of the understanding that made such cooperation possible. The day humans were banned from boarding ships with helmets had become the day that changed everything. What began as humanity's greatest diplomatic crisis had evolved into the foundation for a new era of galactic cooperation, proving that sometimes the most devastating setbacks can become the stepping stones to extraordinary achievements. Looking out at the stars, Rebecca knew that this was only the beginning. The innovations developed at New Geneva Station would continue spreading throughout the galaxy, creating new opportunities for cooperation and understanding between species that had once viewed each other with suspicion and fear. Humanity had earned its place in the galactic community not through force or economic dominance, but through the simple wisdom that seeing clearly both literally and figuratively was the first step toward working together.